Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. We're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry. You can find us over on Twitter, X at TDC_Calvin and at Dynasty_Dale. And we are back for the week 2 preview going on this week. And this is going to be our first time. So, we're open to criticism from you guys. Make sure you leave some comments down below and tell us how we did. But we're going to be talking through all 16 games that are going to be going on this week. We're going to talk about half of them now. The other half will come out on Friday. So if you're watching this one second, hopefully you watch the other one first, but it is what it is. But this is going to include the Thursday night game as well. So we're going to be just giving our thoughts on players that we think are going to have a good game, kind of who we would be looking to start in certain matchups. We'll kind of compare a few players to players and things like that, but we're going to feel this out, see how it goes, and, like I said, you guys can let us know your thoughts on how this podcast goes at the end, and, hopefully you guys enjoy it and can get something useful from it. That's kind of what the whole point of this podcast is. We don't want to just do all the normal talking points. Start Jamar Chase. Start Joe Burrow. Like, it's just so boring, We're trying to give you good advice, sleeper picks, things like that. Before we get into that, though, Dale, how are we doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm really excited for football to be finally back. It was kind of a stinker week 1, unfortunately.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it yet, actually. It was rough.
It was pretty underwhelming, unfortunately, but that's not a surprise. Every now and again, like sometimes we have stinker weeks, and there was a little bit of weird weather, and I just don't think all the offenses were really ready to run like they should have been. But I believe that week 2 is going to be a little bit better, and we definitely have some really good matchups.
We pray. Are the defenses finally just getting better again? Is it, they always say NFL is cyclical. Is it just coming around that defenses are good? Maybe. We'll see. But, so with that, we haven't talked about it just yet, but, if you heard the news or if you haven't heard the news, Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles in Monday Night Football. I blame Dale completely. We were watching the game at his place, and, first couple plays of the game, didn't even get a pass attempt in. And
it was really ugly to start out with. He was running for his life, and then he planted his left foot in the turf and pop went his Achilles. So.
Yep. And at 39 years old,
it's going to be rough.
I don't think he's going to come back. I really don't. I think he's going to, he was very close to being done this last offseason. You take that into account in this upcoming season. I think he's going to be done personally, but, you can let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think Rodgers is coming back? Now, quickly, that leads to Zach Wilson as the starter. I like Zach Wilson. I think that there's still potential there. I like him a lot better if Aaron Rodgers is going to be on the sideline coaching him up. I'm not going to lie. Like, hopefully Aaron Rodgers can get out there and coach him up a little bit, because I think that Aaron Rodgers is what saved Zach Wilson's career, and without Aaron Rodgers, you might not have a career. So hopefully, but we'll kind of leave it there. What do we think the impact is going to be on the Green Bay players, season long, not just this week specifically, but I think the running game is going to be just fine. I think that Brees looked electric in that game.
I agree.
The question is Garrett Wilson mostly for me. Do you think he's still going to be a good player?
I think for the Jets, he is going to be he's going to be the wide receiver 1, but I don't believe he's going to have a great of a season as he was going to.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be like a solid top 24 season, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near what we were expecting, and a lot of people were drafting him for.
Yeah, he was wide receiver 5 or 6 or something.
Actually yesterday, I ran a Twitter poll on our site, for how some of the Jets fans were feeling about Aaron Rodgers and who's going to be next. And actually, most people voted for a free agent, having a free agent come in instead of
copium, man.
I.e. Zach Wilson.
No.
And then actually, a lot of people said that there's really no hope for the Jets, even if there's Zach Wilson or whoever is going to be there. And I think that's great, because I feel Jets fans are super reactive.
Right, you're a Dolphins fan. I'm a Pats fan, so
I love it.
It's kind of bittersweet, but no, I think that Garrett Wilson, I'm with you. I think he's going to have have games where he's going to show that elite talent with Zach Wilson or whoever. But we'll kind of have to wait and see. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see it this week because they're going to be against Dallas. We'll talk about them here in just a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Jets recover from this. If they're going to make a big splash, we have no idea. Everything they've said says it's going to Zach Wilson now, and it's going to be his team. So, hopefully that short stint with Aaron Rodgers will be able to be enough to kind of help him up and help him improve, right? So, yeah, that said, let's jump into our first matchup. And this week it's actually going to be Thursday night on Prime, so that'll be fun. I like Prime a little bit more than NBC. I'm not going to lie. The casting, hopefully they're getting a little bit better.
Yeah, I feel it's more interactive. I'm not really big on. I like Kirk Herbstreit and Al Michaels, but I think Al Michaels has checked out a couple years ago, and Kirk Herbstreit is better in college than he is for NFL.
Yeah,
so it was a little rough last year, and I really liked the cast because they have more interactive things for like fantasy, especially with all the stats.
Yep.
All the metrics that are kind of fun and different for fans.
Yep, I'm with you right there. It is huge to have all that kind of stuff just for the fan experience, right? So that said, it is Thursday night, so make sure you have those players in your starting role. Don't be playing them in your flex, especially with all the injuries and everything that's kind of going on right now. There's so many injuries, hamstrings, everything out there. So if you can make sure you put them in your starter positions, if you're playing anybody. We'll talk about who we're going to be playing here. Now, obviously, quarterbacks, I think both of these guys are starts if you have them. Kirk Cousins, if you have him in a super flex or in a one quarterback, unless you're starting one of the top five. I actually like Kirk Cousins a little bit. The Eagles secondary got really banged up last week. They lost a lot of guys. They're starting cornerback, they're starting safety. They lost a couple guys in the offseason as well. Their defensive front is terrifying, so I'm a little nervous for Kirk Cousins on that front, and I'm also a little nervous for Alexander Madison on that front.
I'm probably holding off on Alexander Madison in this matchup, especially because that front seven is nasty. I really think this is more of a pass centric offense. And I really think they're going to shred the Philly secondary, kind of like Mac Jones did on Sunday. He really shredded them up, and I feel Kirk is that much better and has that much better weapons.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts on the other side. I do think that the Minnesota defense is kind of rough, and it is. Baker Mayfield was taking off on some big runs in that game last week, and if Baker can look mobile, I think that Jalen Hurts is going to put him to shame. So I think Jalen Hurts is going to be just fine. Again, Kirk Cousins, unless you have one of those top 5-6 guys or one of those really mobile guys, we'll talk about a few other options here later on. You're definitely starting both quarterbacks. Madison, a little bit of a hold off. Are you starting any running backs for the Eagles? Unless I have to, I'm not.
If you had to, I would probably. I don't want to start DeAndre Swift, but if I were to pick one, it would be him since Penny's injury and with Gainwell potentially out too.
Gainwell's already confirmed out, by the way.
Yeah, he's already confirmed out. So don't start Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah, right.
But with that, if I were to start a back, unfortunately, it would be DeAndre Swift. But I don't really expect a lot out of him.
I don't want to, I want to see his usage be good, and I know the coach came out and said that they're going to be using him up and down a little bit this year. So this might be one of the up games, but maybe it's matchup dependent. Let's just see how they use them in an up game before, and what we can expect in a good matchup before we kind of roll them out there. You know what I mean? Receiver wise, obviously Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, we're starting both of those guys. I think this is a sneaky good game for Jordan Addison. If you do have Addison, I think Addison's going to be a top 15 guy. I think both of these guys are going to be top 15. It all depends on Kirk Cousins. If that front seven is just the Eagles' defensive front. If they can get to Kirk as much as it's possible with the banged up offensive line that the Vikings have, that's a little scary, but I do think that Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson should have good games. Devonta Smith, he should be just fine as well.
I would still start him as well, but I'm a little bit more worried about him because I feel him and Goddard are going to be touchdown dependent. This year is what I'm a little worried about.
Yeah.
I mean, I would much rather start Devonta Smith over Goddard, because I don't really think Goddard's gonna. It was really scary production with him. I believe he only had one target last week.
Yeah, but
And
again,
it was a weird game. It was
New
a weird
England
game.
defense. We have much improved corners this year as well, so take that into account. Now, would you start Jordan Addison over Devonta Smith?
I probably would, because I feel the Vikings are going to have to throw a lot,
I agree.
and they're going to be down, and I wouldn't be shocked if Addison scores another touchdown this week.
I agree. I'm with you there. Tight end wise, TJ Hawkinson, Dallas Goedert, both of them are must starts.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have one of those top three guys, you're going to be playing these two. So you're just going to be hoping for a better day from Goddard and Hawkinson as well. So again, Hawkinson I think will be pretty sneakily good, but we'll kind of see how that goes.
I agree. So so for our last bit, like, who do you have winning this game?
I think it's going to be the Eagles. I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah,
I think they're going to bounce back, or play a lot better in this week. They won last week.
I agree, and I think this game is going to be closer than people think. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a one score game by the end of it, but I still think the Eagles are going to have it handily.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's going to be more of a comeback effort by Minnesota for sure. So, all right, let's go over to our next game here, and we're going to start talking about Green Bay versus Atlanta now. Now, this one is an interesting matchup, and I was talking to my buddy, and I was listening to last week a little bit. Green Bay, they just absolutely dismantled the Chicago Bears, and everyone's saying, why did DJ Moore only have 2 targets and all this stuff? And Jair Alexander was really bad last year, and he's a cornerback for the Green Bay Packers. He was someone that was considered like one of those elite shutdown corners for a long time. Until last year, he struggled heavily last year, right? Maybe last like year and a half. But last week, he was on DJ Moore the entire game. And, once you put that into perspective a little bit, it does make you think that maybe they put him on we know that they put him on DJ Moore, but maybe that's the reason why DJ Moore wasn't targeted, because he's kind of getting back. Everyone has said that this Green Bay defense is back to the elite, what should have been that last year with Rodgers, right? But everyone expected them to have a top 5 defense that year, and they really disappointed. But if the Green Bay defense is back to that level, what does that mean for Atlanta here? Now, quarterback-wise, Jordan Love, Desmond Ridder, Jordan Love had a really good week last week. Right. Are we considering him, like, for example, Kirk Cousins or Jordan Love?
I would start Kirk Cousins, but I think Jordan Love can have another sneaky week. I think he's going to be a top 15 quarterback this year, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's based on necessity a little bit.
Sure.
But I think he has the ability to play well, and I mean, if I were in a Superflex league, I would start him in a heartbeat. So.
Yeah. Yep. Desmond Ridder, I am not starting him until I see a passing attack.
I'm not going to touch Desmond Ridder until Arthur Smith can have a game plan where he actually utilizes his weapons.
Right.
Which I don't think will ever happen.
Receiving weapons, right?
Yes. Right. Yes. Thank you. Sorry. Yes,
now, what do we expect from the running backs, though, for the Atlanta side? Because these two guys absolutely teed off on the Carolina defense, but the Green Bay defense, the front was disgusting last week. I think Atlanta has a much better offensive line than the Bears, unfortunately. Yes, so. Do we think that both of these guys can be those top 15?
If I would be starting both of them personally, okay. I think they can at least give top 25 potential.
Yeah, honestly, I think volume alone, I believe, right?
Yeah. I was thinking in volume, and plus I feel that the Bears gave up last week, and
I agree.
They just they just stopped caring, and I feel that. If the Falcons if their game plan is to run the ball, that they're just going to try to ram it down throat, literally.
Yeah.
over
I do think that
Arthur.
Yeah, Arthur Smith. I have a lot of problems with him, but I do think that he is very creative in the run game. Like he's good at scheming it open. It works. I mean, everyone knows he wants to run it, and he still gets it done. So, I'm with you. I'm actually starting. If you got Bijan, if you got Algier, I'm definitely throwing those guys out there and letting it go. 100%. Aaron Jones, I'm not starting him this week. I do think that the hamstring is going to limit him. I know a lot of people are talking about that. Oh, he should be fine, but he did not look good when he pulled up last week. So I'm holding off. No running backs for me for this Green Bay side personally. Do you have a difference of opinion there?
If I was in a pinch, I would start Aaron Jones. But with hamstring history, I don't think Aaron Jones has a big history with hamstrings, but still. It's
just
something to monitor, and I don't trust A.J. Dillon. He's not.
No, he's not the guy.
He's bad. He's just not good anymore, and it's kind of sad. But
yep.
It's for the receiving options for Green Bay. I think the only one I would want to start would be Romeo Doubs.
I'm with you. I was going to say the exact same. I was going to ask you, but my exact same opinion, because Christian Watson, he's coming back from injury. Didn't play last week. Romeo Doubs is also coming back from injury, but he was still good enough last week. And Atlanta has a much better defense than in years past, but I think that Romeo Doubs and Jordan Love have a good connection, and I think that's going to be 100%. From a PPR standpoint enough volume to kind of push him into a startable asset. Maybe a low end wide receiver 2 this week is what I'm kind of expecting from him.
Right.
On the flip side, I'm not starting Drake London at all.
Unfortunately not.
Again,
it's really sad.
Yeah, we just talked about Jair Alexander. And if they're going to put him on Drake London, it's their only good receiver for this team, outside of the tight end, right? So I'm not starting Drake London. I'm out on him. And, we have to see, again, just like Desmond Ridder, I need to see a game plan where they decide to feature Drake London. So tight end-wise, though, Luke Musgrave, I'm not really starting him. I think there's better options out there. Kyle Pitts, I think this is a sneaky good Kyle Pitts game.
Yeah, I would start Kyle Pitts a sneaky start.
Yeah.
It's for Kyle Pitts. Yes. And I think with the tight end landscape as it is, like you almost have, like if you've drafted him, you have to play him.
Yeah, unless you have a better option out there, right? And that's tough. Right. But I think that with Jair on Drake London, it will free up Pitts a little bit more. And again, everyone knows that they want to run the ball. They showed it last week. So we'll see if they can continue to do that with no impediments, right? Whether they're going to get some resistance sooner or later. And I think this is the defense to really test that on. So we'll kind of see how that goes. Jumping over to the next game here on the 1 o'clock. This is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Buffalo gets a home game, and should be decent weather. I don't think it's supposed to storm or anything, but make sure you're checking that kind of stuff. It's an outdoor game. Absolutely. The last one, it was Green Bay in Atlanta, so it's in a dome. You don't have to worry about it. What are we expecting for this one? Is Josh Allen going to be garbage yet again, or is he going to bounce back? I
don't know what was going on Monday night with Josh Allen. He was
it was rough.
He like he was reverting back to old Josh Allen, and I do think the Jets have a good defense, but not that good of a defense. It's the
85 Bears, man. What do you want from
him? But still, it was just odd game planning, and I don't know. It was just odd. I don't know.
I agree.
I kind of chalk that up as a fluke game with the whole Aaron Rodgers injury. I think I think that threw a lot of things
everyone
off.
Just felt weird in that game.
Yes, yeah, and it was odd. So I'm not worried about Josh Allen. I mean, I really think I'm surprised the Raiders won last week. To be honest,
I was too. That was a close game. That was a very back and forth game. Unfortunately, we'll get to Denver, but their weapons are just getting battered, man, by injury.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
All right, so quarterbacks in this game, you got Josh Allen. Obviously, still start him. I know he was bad last week, but he's going to bounce 100%. Back. Now, Garoppolo on the other side for the Raiders. You're out completely. I think I'm with you.
Yeah. I mean, I know he had a very. I think he had a top 12 week, didn't he, last week?
He was close. He was very. It depends on your league settings, but yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty close, but I think Buffalo's going to play a lot better. They're playing at
Mhm.
home, and
Their
plus,
defense looked good too against the
yeah,
Jets.
it did, and I've and it's when I look at games, I try to look, I try to look and see like if there's a West Coast team going to the East Coast,
Hmm.
and and the Raiders don't travel very well,
I
and
agree.
they never really
I
have,
agree.
so I think they're going to have a stinker of a game, which is going to be their whole season.
The only
Personally,
benefit I can
but
see for this is that Josh McDaniels has so much history with Buffalo
with
that maybe
going
he
against
can,
Buffalo, that's true.
scheme something
Yeah,
up. But, I think it's going to be a rough one as well. You go over to the running backs here, and James Cook actually looked pretty decent last week.
yes, he did. Yes, he did.
They were using him more than they did as his rookie year. I don't know if he's still a must-start player right now. I think he's kind of a low-end RB2 right now.
Yeah.
On the flip side, Josh Jacobs, I actually would not be playing him this week. He looked kind of rough last week against Denver, and I think Buffalo is just as good. He feels like he's still kind of shaking off some of the rust and everything. I know he signed his franchise tag really, really late in the year. So I think that there's probably a little bit of it that has to do with that. I expect him to be back to like peak Josh Jacobs in week 3 or week 4. I think it's just going to take him a little bit of time. This is not the matchup you want to be starting him if you have better options. I think that Josh Jacobs is probably going to be around RB20 this week. And if that's the case, we'll talk about some of these other guys, but if you can start somebody else over him, I would definitely be like, I would start Tyler Algier over Josh Jacobs right now. Do you agree?
I think that's close. I mean, I do hear what you're saying, but if you're doing redraft leagues like at cost, like you almost have to start Josh Jacobs. Like you can't, like you
I
can't. Sit
mean,
him,
you just want the win, right? That's all I'm saying. Like,
right.
You got to take the name value out of it a little bit.
I don't disagree. But there are definitely better options.
Sure.
And I feel if he's your flex player, you feel better than if he's one of your starting running backs.
I agree with that 100%. All right, now excuse me. Sorry, wrong pipe. Wide receivers now. You got Diggs and Gabe Davis. Deontay Hardy had a little bit of usage. Dalton Kincaid was getting a little bit of work for the Bills. On the other side, you've got Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. Hopefully he's out there. I know he's got the concussion. Yeah. He's in the protocol. Should be fine by Sunday. But, Jacoby Myers does have a little bit of a history of concussions in the past. So if he's not able to make it out there, it's interesting. I think that I think Devontae Adams will be a little bit better, but Hunter Renfrow would be the one that I'd want to start. But yeah, I think the Jacoby Myers or Hunter Renfrow, whichever one's out there is the one that you would want to start for this week. Devontae Adams will still be fine. You're throwing him out there.
He is going to be fine.
Michael, go ahead.
And then for Buffalo, I think the only person I really want to start in Buffalo would be
Diggs.
On Diggs right now.
I actually think that this is a good game for Davis, and the reason why, I put this out on Twitter, like it's always funny to me. Everyone always says, "Oh, don't overreact to week 1," but then Gabe Davis didn't blow up and have 1,000 points in week 1. Which if he would have, people would have said, "Don't overreact." But then he didn't have a good week. But you're supposed to react to that. It's like, guys, you guys got to be consistent with what you're saying. Gabe Davis was shadowed by Sauce Gardner, the defensive rookie of the year last year, a consensus top 5 cornerback already in the NFL, and he was on Gabe Davis the entire game on Monday. And you couple that with the fact that Josh Allen's playing like a silly person out there, right? It's just like Gabe Davis. I think he'll have a much better matchup this week. The Las Vegas defense and secondary is very soft. It's very, very soft. Unfortunately, Denver wasn't able to take advantage of that, but I think that Gabe Davis does have a sneaky bit of opportunity here this week, and I think that he's going to be, I could see him scoring about 20 fantasy points, and that's kind of where I would expect this week. We'll see what he can do. Now, last question for you. Dalton Kincaid for Buffalo. Are you wanting to start him or still waiting to see?
I think I want to wait and see on this whole Buffalo offense. It's like I said, the only guy I feel comfortable starting is Diggs. Everyone else is kind of going to be hit or miss for me, and I kind of want to see who is going to emerge as that second receiving option.
Yeah, we'll find out this week for sure.
Yeah, we will.
Now
100%.
going on to the next matchup. Sorry, my voice is like going in and out. The water is killing me.
So for our next matchup, we have the Baltimore Ravens against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think we need to take a moment of silence for my guy J.K. Dobbins. He tore his Achilles, unfortunately, and that makes me sad. And I'm just really sad for this guy.
Yep.
He's a fantastic back, and he was playing really, really well before the injury. And he scored like 12 points, in like a quarter and a half, basically. It seemed like so.
Pouring out for the JK.
Yeah. So I feel so bad for J.K. Dobbins. So, but with that, he did have a couple replacements in the Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. I think
and
Justice
Melvin
Hill
Gordon, right?
Touchdowns.
Yeah. Justice Hill, he had the funniest stat line. He had 9 yards with 2 touchdowns.
It's gross.
Yeah.
It's really gross.
But before we get to those guys, let's talk about the quarterbacks here. Do we think that these guys were bad last week? And these guys
They were very bad.
Consensus top 8 quarterbacks, right? Do we expect them to have a bounce back this upcoming week?
I think they're going to have a better week. I feel for Lamar Jackson. I feel a lot of it was that they were playing a very inferior team, and they didn't really need him to do a whole lot, and he didn't really have to.
He was making some bad decisions, though.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's just rust, the new system.
I'm not super worried about these guys, and again, like with the Bengals, like the Bengals just quit against the Browns, which is more shocking to me with a divisional foe,
right?
And you kind of just give up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're both gonna have better. I mean, they almost have to have better games. I would think. I mean, I'm still starting them. I am because I feel like I have to.
You have to. I mean, you have to for what you paid for him.
Yeah,
so
you almost have to.
You just have to hope that both of them were shaking off rust. I mean, Joe Burrow hasn't even practiced in about a month, right? Other than this week. Yep. So I do think that we have to give him a little bit of leeway that he needs to just kind of get back into it. But at the same time, the Browns' defensive front was very terrifying. The Baltimore defense was looking pretty good last week as well. They got the win. They didn't lead Lamar to do much, but I do think that there's probably a little bit of rust with Lamar as well as a new system and, figuring all that out as well. So you're starting both of these guys unless you have, again, a better choice, but it's hard considering what these guys cost, right? Now, running back wise, Joe Mixon was okay. I'm okay playing him again this week. I think he'll be fine.
Agreed.
I'm playing him, I'd be playing Joe Mixon over Josh Jacobs, for example, that we've already talked about.
I do agree with that. I mean, and I kind of feel Joe Mixon at this point is a little bit better of a player than Josh Jacobs. I kind of think Jacobs had
I think so as well. We'll see. I think Jacobs, again, he's just shaking off a little bit of rust, but it's something 100%. To monitor for sure. On the Baltimore side, though, I'm not starting any of these guys unless you absolutely have to.
I feel if I had to, I would start Gus Edwards.
Ironically, if I had to, I'd start Melvin Gordon. So, that's the only problem with these guys.
I believe Melvin Gordon got cut.
I thought he was still with them. I mean, we can check that, but
I will double check while we keep talking about wide receivers.
Okay, so wide receiver wise, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, obviously. Irv Smith is there at the tight end position. You should have Mark Andrews back for the Ravens. I don't know if losing Mark Andrews is what kind of threw them into a funk last week. You still got Zay Flowers. I gotta admit, I was a fan of Zay. I was not as big a fan as a lot of people out there. He has,
I was,
dude. You were for sure. He looks like the real deal, and I was wrong on not loving him enough. Zay Flowers looked so freaking good last week, and Todd Monken featured him in the offense. Now, the one thing I will say, so Zay Flowers must start at this point in time. Based on that 1 week, he was so good last week. I think that, and the team was so bad. That should tell you something how good this kid's going to be. Now, the one thing I will say, Odell Beckham played a lot of snaps as well. Rashad Bateman was okay in his usage last week, even though he only played 33% of snaps. Everyone is saying, oh, well, he's the third man out. He's not going to play. you got to remember, they did just activate him from the IR, the preseason IR, about a week and a half before the start of the season. So he's still ramping up, just like Joe Burrow and some of these other guys. I do think that eventually Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers are going to be the 1 and 2 on this team, with Mark Andrews, of course, obviously. But I do think that everyone's kind of overreacting to Odell Beckham Jr.'s usage in week 1 and, looking at Rashad Bateman a little bit too negatively. I think he's someone to keep an eye on, and they're going to slowly work him back up to higher usage as time goes on. Mark Andrews, you're starting him, right? So,
100%.
Cincinnati side.
And then going back to the running backs, Melvin Gordon, he was actually released at the end of August, and he re-signed to their practice squad. So
okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. He could be there, but like he's not on the regular roster right now. So
not yet.
Going on the Ravens receiving options, it's the only 2 guys I want is Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews.
Fair enough.
I kind of want to wait and see on Bateman. I feel that Bateman is the 3rd option, and I don't trust Odell at all. I mean, I think he could have some boom games, but I think he's going to have more bust games.
On the flip side, Cincinnati, start Jamar Chase, start T. Higgins. I think that T. Higgins 100%. Was a fluke. Yep. I'm not starting Irv Smith, not starting Tyler Boyd. So really not too much. I will say, just calm down on T. Higgins. It was a rough week 1.
It's going to be fine. It is 1 week, and it happens every year with him. It does.
For sure.
It really does.
All right, let's go to our next game here. We're going to go to the Seattle Seahawks at the Detroit Lions. 1 o'clock game, and it's going to be in a dome, so there's no weather. You don't have to worry about that. Now, the biggest thing to watch is whether or not Seattle can get back to what they were last year. The Detroit Lions, they're coming off a win over the Super Bowl champs, and what a glorious win that was.
Very surprising win.
Yeah. I mean, without Kelsey though,
it was. I was still surprised they won with how everything was tracking for the Chiefs. It seemed like they were just going to do it, and they contained them. That defense is a lot better. I think it's going to be a very, very good defense for the Detroit Lions this year. Now, Jared Goff and Geno Smith, we talked about some of these other guys. Would you rather start Jared Goff or Jordan Love? I personally would go Goff. Would you go? What do you think? I probably in this.
I'm going Goff over Kirk Cousins as well.
Really? Yeah, that's fair. So, I mean, I would start. I would honestly start both of these guys because I think it's going to be more of a shootout than people think. And I think
agree.
That I think last week that these offenses weren't firing on all cylinders, and I think they're going to really kick it up, like especially with the Seahawks. Like Seahawks really laid an egg against the Rams, and I was more shocked about that game than really any other game last week, and how the Seahawks played, and they played really poorly on offense.
Yeah, I think that there is going to be a little bit of growing pains with this offense. I think the problem is they have so many weapons that trying to figure out how to utilize them all together, it was a little bit of the issue last week. So I'm with you. I would start Geno Smith over Jordan Love, for example, but that's about the limit so far. I would be starting. Obviously all these guys over Desmond Ridder. Running back wise, Jahmyr Gibbs was fine in limited usage. They're starting to ramp him up, and that's what Dan Campbell came out and said after the game. Dave Montgomery, I think, is a low-key starter as well. I don't think he's going to get as many touchdowns, but we said this about Jamal Williams last year, so it would not surprise me if Dave Montgomery had 20 touchdowns.
And then I feel with Montgomery, like, it's not necessarily going to be touchdowns. It's going to be I feel he's going to get more touches than a lot of people think. And
I agree.
think he's going to be a sneaky like low end RB2, RB3, like a flex guy all year.
That's just how they like to do it too. They don't want to give. It's not a workhorse. It's not a workhorse system. So
no, it's not.
On the other side, though, it is more of a workhorse. Kenneth Walker got most of the
far,
touches.
yes. So far, yes.
And I think it's going to stay that way. That's just Pete Carroll and how he plays, man. Like, I went through this with the whole Rashad Penny thing, where Rashad Penny was very explosive and he just could never get on the field because Chris Carson was good. He was better, right? And, as long as Kenneth Walker is healthy and he's playing well, he's going to be the number one guy. And until he slips, that's when Charbonnet is going to be there. So I'm starting Kenneth Walker. I'm not starting Zach Charbonnet. I'm starting Kenneth Walker, I'm starting him over Jacobs. I'm starting him over Mixon.
I think I'd rather have Josh Jacobs than Kenneth Walker. I don't know. I think it's going to be. I do understand the point. I would rather start Kenneth Walker than Charbonnet. I'm not starting Charbonnet at all until we see something more out of him. Because he only had a handful of touches and they weren't a lot of yards. Like they were pretty minimal. So. I think I would rather start Jacobs than Kenneth Walker, but I feel they're going to have similar weeks.
Yeah, I think Kenneth Walker's going to be low key kind of good, but we'll see how that goes. Receiver wise for Detroit, you're only starting Amon-Ra, same. Laporta, I think he's sneaky good as well.
I would be starting Laporta probably from now on,
unless you have one of those top options, right? That's the only way.
Yes, 100%. So I think Sam Laporta can be a low end tight end one all year.
Yep.
And be really sneaky and be really solid for the Rocky tight end position.
In week 1, he had 5 catches on 5 targets. It wasn't great yardage and everything, but
no, but it was
his first
solid.
ever game.
It was a solid 6-7 points for the tight end position. I would take that every week.
I think it's going to get better. I think he showed flashes of explosiveness. They just used him really short on his depth of targets last week. So, and the Chiefs do have a good defense. They have a good pass rush for the most part, better than I expected, to be honest. On the other side, though, Seattle, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN. I'm not starting any of the tight ends. You can completely disregard the tight ends for this team right now.
I will never start Noah Fant ever again.
Are you starting DK, Lockett, JSN, all 3? I'm just starting DK right now. I think personally.
I feel more comfortable with just DK. I believe that this is going to be JSN's coming out party, in my opinion. And I feel he's going to show up Detroit and he's going to really excel. He's going to be in a dome. It's controlled weather. He's going to have Geno slinging him the ball. And, I do understand that Detroit has a better pass rush than last year, but I feel JSN is just that guy. And I really think
that's where it could play into him too, right? Getting it out to him quickly kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
exactly. But I'm not starting him quite yet until we see more from him.
All right. Yeah. We'll see. I personally, like I said, only Metcalf, but Lockett, he's too scary at this point in time, and he'll have big weeks, but I'm just not betting on him right now until we kind of see this offense get back to the swing of things. Now, next game here we're going to talk about, we've got 3 more that we're going to talk about here today. Indy versus Houston. Again, this is Indianapolis in Houston. Historically, Indianapolis in Houston has always been a bloodbath. They just absolutely dominate them. But this is a new team, new coaching staffs, all that. I don't know if it's going to be the same story. It's in a dome. You like to see that. But Anthony Richardson must start as of right now if you drafted him. I think he's a very good option. I think he's got low QB1, especially against 100%. This defense. The rushing upside, I think that he'll be just fine. Indy started off with a loss, but he looked very good in that week 1 performance. I think he was like quarterback number 7 or so, if I remember right.
Something like it was a very solid. It was a very solid floor for him, and that's what we were expecting from him. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really shocked. So I would definitely start him. Now on the other hand, with CJ Stroud, I felt he was decent. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, he had 250 yards, no touchdowns, no picks.
He was very decent. Yeah, he was very solid, and I think he was overall good. So I'm not starting him yet.
No, not unless you have to. We had to.
You absolutely have to.
Yeah, we just actually made a trade in one of our leagues that we co-manage. We traded Lamar Jackson and a first-round pick for C.J. Stroud Justin Fields. So we got 2 quarterbacks for one. We also had Aaron Rodgers, so we lost Aaron Rodgers this week. So we needed in a super flex league, we needed the extra quarterback. So we bought for CJ Stroud. Now I think he can have a low key, very good game in this week. Like this will be a good matchup for him to grow a little bit and show a little bit of progression. Now, I'm not starting him over any of the guys we really talked about. In a super flex, I think he might be a top 24 guy, so you might be able to get him there. But yeah, I think we just need to sit and wait. Running back wise, I'm not starting a single running back in this game. Even Dameon Pierce, I think that the problem is that I think Indy's going to get up early on Houston and they're going to have to throw a lot, and it doesn't play into a skill set to go to Dameon Pierce, you know what I mean? So do you disagree? Is there anybody that you're looking at?
I think this is going to be a close game. I wouldn't be shocked. I really like the Texans. I agree.
I think they're going to win this game. I do, but it's going to be sloppy.
I think they are too. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Dameon Pierce scores a touchdown, but like other than that, like
I could see it, but I'm not betting on it.
I just don't feel their offensive line is good enough to really sustain him.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel that the Texans are going to throw 50 plus times, probably more often than not this year.
Yeah, I'm leaning David Montgomery over Pierce. I'm even leaning DeAndre Swift over Pierce personally. So I feel
that's close. So,
that's how kind of far down he is on the rankings there. Wide receiver, this is where it was interesting. Michael Pittman started off rough. They didn't really utilize him much. I thought it was going to be the Josh Downs show, and then man, they came back with a vengeance with Michael Pittman. You'll love to see that. I think Michael Pittman is just fine against this Houston defense. Yep. I think Downs is low-key flexible, just barely flexible.
I would say he would be in a bigger league.
Yeah. If you have
in a bigger league.
If you're in like a 14-16 team, I think Josh Downs is kind of sneaky there. On the other side, Nico Collins is kind of sneaky again if you're in a bigger league.
I really like Nico Collins, and I
do too. I
believe he's going to get the volume.
I agree. I agree with that.
So.
But Robert Woods kind of showed off a little bit as well last week, so maybe he can kind of improve that a little bit. They did not utilize Dalton Schultz at all. Kylan Granson looked okay with Anthony Richardson. I'm not leaning on either one of these guys though. I'm not interested in a tight end. Again, the only wide receiver really is Michael Pittman, low-key Josh Downs, and Nico Collins if you had to. But that's about it for this one. And anybody else you want to talk about?
Yeah, that's it. I would probably rank it Pittman, Collins, and then Downs, and it's just because of volume for Nico Collins. And I wouldn't be shocked if he was like a top 24 guy this week.
Yep, I could see that just based on volume. At the same time, that's where I think that Robert Woods could be the guy that gets all the volume in this game. We have no idea, unfortunately, but we'll see. We'll find out this week. Just don't start him unless you have to. Right. All right, let's get out of here. This one is kind of gross, AFC gross. South, man. It is what it is. Let's go over to the Kansas City versus Jacksonville now. Ooh. Jacksonville 1-0, taking on the 0-1 Kansas City. Are they going to continue the streak? I do think that Kansas City is going to pull out this victory, but
it's going to be close, and thankfully, like weather's not going to is not going to play a part.
Hopefully,
in
right?
Week.
It's down in Jacksonville, so it should be warm at least. It'll be humid.
Yeah, I'm checking the weather now, and it's saying right now it's going to be 85 with a 33% chance of rain. So
okay,
so it's going to be a partly cloudy, decent game in Jacksonville. So I'm starting both of these quarterbacks in Patrick Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence. I think both of them can have top 5 weeks.
Oh, really? You're that high on T-Law? I was going to ask you Jared Goff or T-Law, but
I think it's only because I wouldn't be shocked if it's a shootout and he has to really play.
Yeah, so, I could see it.
I'm not super high on Lawrence, but I wouldn't be shocked if he had a top 5 week, but also I feel he's probably like a low end QB1.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be just fine. running back wise, I don't want anything to do with the Chiefs running backs. I don't trust any of them. I don't think any of them are going to be used.
Agreed.
And I think that this is going to be a Mahomes pick them apart and just have his way with them. On the flip side, Tank Bigsby got the touchdown last week, which you like to see. They are slowly bringing Tank Bigsby along, but Travis Etienne is
it's more slow than I would have liked and really expected. It's coming out of preseason. I really thought Tank was going to have a little bit more a hold of the backfield, but it seemed more in favor of Travis Etienne, volume wise. So I think for at least the first half of the season, I'm not going to start Tank Bigsby yet until I see a game out of him, but I am definitely starting Travis Etienne.
Yeah, he looked very good last week.
Yeah,
now I will say that the Chiefs, their run defense is a little bit better, so just keep that in mind. Receiver wise,
and then they're going to have Chris Jones too.
Yeah, yep. So that's going to be terrifying. Receiver wise, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones.
Start him up.
So how would you rank all the receivers for this game? Kadarius Toney on the other side, Mr. Butterfingers. Sky Moore did not get utilized at all. The sky was falling on Sky Moore, ironically, after that game. Rashee Rice had the touchdown. Nice game for Rashee Rice.
It was overall solid. Like he did have a drop. I think it was a drop or two, but it wasn't anything horrible like Kadarius Toney, dropping what
he dropped it into the defender's hands, man.
Yeah, it was bad. So
yeah,
I think. I mean, are we counting tight ends too?
I would just do receivers for now.
Okay. I'm not starting any Chief wide receiver.
I would start Rashee Rice. I would start Rashee Rice over.
If I absolutely had to, it would be Rashee Rice, but I don't want any part of that. I mean, I would love to start Calvin Ridley. I think I'm really surprised he had a couple touchdowns, 100 yards. I'm surprised he started out so hot. I don't think it's going to be to that extent, but it's still going to be a good week for him. And then I do think Zay Jones. I'm more surprised about Christian Kirk's output.
It's just something to watch. Maybe it was just a game plan specific thing, but I am also concerned about that. Now, Rashee Rice, real quick, I would start him over like a Nico Collins, who we already talked about, just for example. So just something to keep in mind there. I do think that there's a lot of potential. Rashee Rice was very, very good in camp, and I think that he's going to be able to keep that going for the Chiefs going forward. Now let's get into the tight ends here. Travis Kelce should be back in this one, and that's going to be what is going to be the biggest difference maker. Yep. He's going to change this entire offense. Evan Ingram on the other side, though, are we interested in him at all? He did not show much.
I'm really not interested in him.
I agree.
And in all jokes aside, like he did sign a lengthy contract, so
yeah.
So once that happens with him, he can't.
He falls apart
anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel I have better options at the tight end position.
Yeah, like Laporta. I'd rather start Laporta, for example. Some of those tier of players.
I think I would rather play Dalton Kincaid.
I was just going to say the exact same thing. So we're in sync there. If you really go back and look at Evan Ingram last year too, he had a couple of big performances. He had the 40-point game or whatever it was. And other than that, though, he was kind of disappointing as well. So I think that he's kind of living on that big week a little bit too much. But, I think Calvin Ridley's changing this offense as well. All right, last game of the day that we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about the Chicago Bears versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Chicago's 0-1, Tampa Bay is 1-0. I actually think the Bears have a good chance of winning this one. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit here, and the Bears, they got pretty handily defeated by
trounced by the
Packers, right?
It was bad. Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, before he left, he gave the deed of the Chicago ownership to Jordan Love. He passed it on.
Yep, 100%.
But I do think that everyone's going back and saying, "Oh, Justin Fields was bad." I was so confused by that narrative because Justin Fields had decent amount of passing yards. He had 212 passing yards, for only 2 passing attempts more than 10 yards. Like, what did we want? What did you guys want from him? He still had a decent fantasy performance. The game plan sucked, and this is where
it was the game plan. It was the game plan, and
this is where it's confusing, right? And one thing to take into account. And sorry, I just want to get this rant out because it's been bugging me for so long. But we, again, don't overreact to week one. But we don't know what these teams' intention is, right? Like it's very likely that Chicago knows they're not a playoff team right now. They know they might be trying to just get better going into this year, right? Instead of being the number 1 overall pick, maybe they finish 6 or 7 wins or something like that. And because of that, they tried, because Justin Fields refused to throw anything short last year. They didn't. The first game of the year, they only threw short. That's all they did in the game except for 2 passes. So maybe they're just trying to find the balance there and how to, play that together. We have no idea at this point in time. As of right now, it looks really, really bad, but we have to be a little bit patient. Justin Fields was not the problem last week. The defensive front was just destroying that offensive line, and the game plan was not great.
It was bad offensive line play, and there wasn't any plays to push the ball forward.
I agree. And then you look at go ahead.
That's a big problem. Well, and that's a big problem. And like Justin Fields came out earlier this week and said that he's going to be more aggressive, and he's just going to take it into his own hands and be like, screw you. Getz is his last, is the OC, I think.
Luke Getsy, yeah. Yep.
Getsy, yeah. He's crap. He cannot follow.
He was fine in the latter half of last year. So like I said, we just got to be a little patient. We just got to be patient.
Well, and I honestly feel that it was because of Justin Fields and his, in him just improvising and having these quarterback runs and these plays break down where he was able to do these things that he's good at.
Yeah, and that's where we got to find out what the actual intention of that game was. Maybe they're trying to get him better at the short stuff. We have no idea, and they didn't want him to do anything deep. Maybe he was just sticking to the script, and this week he's going to open it up a little bit more. So, Justin Fields, I'm still starting him. I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 100%. Defense is that good. Baker Mayfield, actually, I think is kind of sneaky start in this week. He played well against Minnesota, and Chicago's defense is no better. They're much worse, actually. So I think Baker is kind of a sneaky start. I'd be starting Baker over Jimmy Garoppolo, over Geno Smith. I have a lot of faith in Baker this upcoming week. He was a top 12 guy last week, which was crazy.
Yeah, I would probably start Geno over Baker. I feel Baker has always been fool's gold.
We'll see.
I can see him. I can see him having a good passing yardage week, but he's prone to throwing picks. So
yeah, but again, who's gonna get those picks on the Chicago side? That defense sucks, man. It's really bad.
It's bad.
Now running back wise, are you starting a single running back in this game? I am not. I do not want any of them.
I mean, I was hoping to start Rashard White, but he was bad. He's bad. I think if you were to take a flyer on anybody, it would be Rashawn Johnson.
Roshan, yeah, the only thing with that, the context was that he got a lot of that work in garbage time last week, so just keep that in mind. I'm with you. That's who I would take my flyer on as well, but just keep that in mind. Until we kind of see a little bit more of his usage earlier in the game, I'm kind of concerned, right? So I'm out. I'm not starting any of these running backs. I think that the quarterbacks are going to probably steal most of the rushing yardage in this game. Yeah. Baker was low-key kind of mobile last week, which was kind of fun to see.
I agree.
Receiver-wise, Godwin, Evans for Tampa Bay. Start them both.
Yeah. I mean, I probably would. You about have to.
Fire them up, man. The Bears defense sucks, so it's worse than Minnesota.
Yeah, that's true. And then for the Bears, are you still starting DJ Moore?
I am. Again, I think that the Jair Alexander effect, that I think that they don't have the same type of. They have good secondary for Tampa Bay, but it's not the same caliber. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with starting DJ Moore again, especially if Fields is going to kind of get a little bit more dink and dunk and creative with it. Then we'll see what he can do. But I think that they're going to fix that. Again, we don't know what the intention is, but I could see them coming out here and hyper targeting DJ Moore this week. So
yeah,
I'm
can
fine
see
with that
too. And I mean, a sneaky one might be Darnell Mooney if you're in a bigger league. But other than that, I am not interested in Chase Claypool. I think I would rather be hit by a bus than start Claypool. So
what about these tight ends though? Cole Kmet, Kate Otten. Kmet was decent last week, but
I think if I were to start one of them, it would be Cole Kmet.
Yep.
But I think I have better options.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'd probably start Evan Ingram over Cole Kmet. That's kind of where I'm at personally. So
probably. Yeah.
It's not great, but Kate Otten, Cole Kmet, both of these guys got a decent amount of usage last week, so we'll kind of see what they can do. Hopefully they kind of, tune it up a little bit here in the next couple of weeks. So that is the last of the games that we're going to be covering here today. Hopefully you guys come back tomorrow. We're going to be covering the other 8 games. We'll hopefully we'll be able to, if we miss any of the big news or any big news announcements, we'll come out with a secondary video and put those out on the channel. So again, you can follow us on our personal Twitters at TDC_Calvin for myself, at Dynasty _Dale for Dale. You can find the podcast at FF After Dark on Twitter, and you can find us on the Dynasty After Dark YouTube, Spotify, Google, Apple, any of those channels, anywhere podcasts are found, Rumble as well. If you can, please subscribe to the channel. Like I said, this is our first time doing this, so let us know your thoughts and any critiques that you guys might have down in the comments below. We appreciate it. We're going to be continuing this all season long, and then after the season, we're going to be rolling right into those rookies. And there's a lot. Dale's watching a lot of college. He's getting up there, and he's going to be watching those guys for us. So until next time, Dale, any last thoughts?
Nope.
All right. Until next time, thank you guys so much for listening. Have a good night.